Lots of graphing. So basically, it is a little bit of chapter 1, a little bit of chapter 2, a little bit of chapter 4. We put them all together, and we teach you one new thing. Now, that assumes you know the old stuff. So go in there, vacuum out the cobwebs, get those out. Okay? And we're just going to graph a line. Then you're going to graph a line. Then I'll do a function, and you'll do a function. We're just keep going back and forth. So I'm actually going to start with this one on the right. So I'm going to number these. Number 1, number 2. So I'm going to start with number 1 and say that this is really negative 1/2 over 2. And I would always encourage you to do that. If you have a negative fraction, just make the top number negative. And so you kind of ignore the inequality to start. And so I'm just going to go ahead, plot my y-intercept, which is 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my slope. So I'm going down 1 to the right 2. And I do that over and over and over again. But now I need to deal with the inequality. And so this inequality has a bar underneath. So we got a little key here. I don't leave this here forever. Okay, you will have to remember it, but you're going to graph so often that you're going to remember it. So if there's a bar under the inequality, you have a solid line or a solid curve or whatever that shape may be. If you do not have a bar, it is dashed. And you know, the best practice is to use an open circle, but I don't get super picky on that. So I'm going to draw this, and I have a line there, so I draw a solid line. And I am halfway, actually 2/3 of the way to being done with the problem. I have to do one last thing. So when I have an inequality here, I have to figure out where do I shade. Because not only is this line the solution, but either above it or below it to infinity is going to be a solution. So we choose any point that is not on the line. Pick a point. 0, 0. 0, 0 is a great point to choose as long as it's not on the line. So I'm going to choose 0, 0. And we plug it in. So 0 is y and 0 is x. So I get 0 is less than or equal to negative 1/2 times 0 plus 2. Is 0 less than or equal to 2? Yeah. I like to put true or false, so I put T or F. And since that is true, I just shade. Done. Now, you can see how much I shaded. I don't need the whole paper perfectly. Some people get every single square shaded, and I'm just like, I mean, good for you. Hopefully it's right. You put that much time into it, but I don't care that much. It's just got to look something like that. Now, we ask you for solution points on your homework. So this was a checkpoint. Is this a solution? Yeah, it was true. Okay. If it is true, it's also a solution point. So if I was asked for a solution, I could say my solution is 0, 0. I could also say a solution is negative 2, negative 2, which would be right there. Anything in the shaded area is a solution. It is wise not to choose on the line, because if that's a dashed line, it's not a solution. And if you choose off the line always, you don't have to remember that. Okay? Questions on number 2? Number 1, you graph it. Don't worry about the shading. Just get a bunch of dots for the line. I just want to make sure you can do that. If you can do that, you're in a pretty good place. So that is what your line should look like. So I'll go through a few things. Your y-intercept is right there. My slope, it's going up 3 into the right 1. So I did that multiple times. For lines, I like to fill out the graph as much as I can. You'll notice I used open circles. I am not going to get super picky about that. If you show me a dashed line, I will accept it. But technically, you should use open circles to show that you're not equal to any of those points. Then we got to do a test point. Which one? 0, 0? All right, we can do 0, 0 again. So I have 0 is greater than 3 times 0 plus 1. 0 is greater than 1. No. So that's false. Now I like to put my checkpoint down, so 0, 0 is right there. So that's false. I don't need to plug in another point. I jump to the other side of the line and I shade. What's a solution point? What's one solution point? Perfect. So we ask you that. So on your test, there's really like a lot of these problems have like 4 points attached to them. And I'm going to write them down here, so I'll put that down. But one of those points is a solution point. So can you just find a solution? Can you find a point in the shaded area? That should be easy. There's 1 point. So the first thing you do when you're graphing these are plot the function. If you can put the dots down where you should for that function, you got 1 point. Okay? This, some of you might think, hey, there's actually a lot of work that goes into that. But since we've already tested you on that, we don't give you a lot for that. So that's 1 point. Step 2, is it dashed? Or is it solid? And then number 3 is our shading or the test point or whatever. Now, there is a way of shading without doing a test point. I'm not going to tell you because I don't encourage you to do it. Because if you get it wrong, it's just all wrong. There's nothing there to help you. So please do a test point to help yourself out. Or you can use the other method but then still show the test point after you're done. So you're guaranteeing yourself points. Again, this test can help your grade as long as you do your due diligence. So it comes down to basically 3 points for each graph and then 1 point per the solution point. Questions? All right, drop them down. All right, number 3. Talk to me. What form is that in? What is it, Eli? Factored form. Factored form. Good. So it is in factored form. Folks, if it's in factored form, you have 2 zeros right in front of you. I have a 0 of 4, 0. I have that point, and I have negative 2, 0. We did 5. I might start letting you slack and actually just get 3, but today's not that day. So we're going to get 5. How do I get 3 more? And there's 1 point I always want. I always want the vertex. How do I find the vertex? What? It's in the middle. Yeah. So folks, I actually don't care if you find your axis of symmetry, but halfway in between is 1. So I don't need you to write that down. But what I do need you to do is kind of ignore this inequality and just figure out what your vertex is. So I'm going to say y is equal to negative 2. Then I'm going to plug 1 in. So I get 1 minus 4 and 1 plus 2. And we work through this. What do we get? 18. Now, am I going to give you that mean of a number on a test? Probably not. But we can deal with it. So I'm going to scale my y's. I'm going to say my x's go by 1, but my y's I'm going to make go by 3. So I got my vertex right there. Let's find one more point. How do I find one more point? If I find 1, I actually find 2. Because of symmetry, right? I can reflect it across. Plug in a number. Okay, folks, you need to all hear that. Because on this test, if you're sitting there and you're just like, I forgot everything, you can always plug in the number. And it will always give you a y. And then you have 2 points. You have an x and a y that you can put down as a coordinate pair, and you can start plotting this. So we try to teach you the most efficient ways of getting through this problem. But if you're stuck, I've had people do this. They plugged in like 20 numbers, and they got everything right. You can do it that way. It works. It's not efficient, but it does work. So let's plug in 0 is what I heard, so 0 is what it is. So we're going to have y is equal to -2 times 0 minus 4 and 0 plus 2. And what do you get for that? 16. So this is 15 right here. So 16 is going to be just a smidge above on both sides. Dashed or solid? Solid. Would you agree with me that the more difficult part is actually just getting all these points than actually knowing if it's solid or dashed? Because that's the new thing today. The new thing today is it dashed or is it solid? And where do I shade? But the more difficult thing is just, what's this look like? So it is solid. Draw that in. What do we want to test? Zero, 0. We can do 0, 0. Now 0, 0 is actually a really smart choice because you already calculated that. You calculated that to be 16. So is 0 greater than 16? No. So that's going to be false. So that point is not a solution. I jump over here and I shade. I shade not only here, but I also shade on the sides. Now, some of you get a little carried away when you're scribbling or you start going too quick. This is the most painful point that I take away from people. They start going like this. What's wrong? No. What? It's in right here. I crossed. If you do that, I will take a point off. Okay? So please don't do that. Okay. Questions on 3? 4. What form is this? Vertex form. Good. The vertex that comes from this is 3, -1. Remember, your vertex is the opposite of x, and it is the same as the y. So it's h comma k. So that's what we got there. So I'm going to plot that point down. Are you good finding a vertex? Because you have to do this. You're going to have to do it in your homework and other things. So any questions about where that vertex came from? All right. Then, how do I find the other points? Here's an easy way. There's a hard way. What's the easy way? Well, what's the hard way? It's your way. Plug in a number. Plug in a number, plug in a number, plug in a number. Just keep plugging in a number. I wouldn't even say it's that bad. You could be smart about what numbers you plug in. What's the easy way? Starts with 1. Then it goes to 4. And then 9. Oh my gosh. You don't have to use 1 for 9. You can plug in. But I'm going to use 1 for 9 just to kind of point your brain back to it. So remember, from your vertex, I can write down 1, 4, 9. Lies, I can write 1, 2, 3. For the left and the right shift. And then for the vertical shift, I can write down 1, 4, and 9. But I'm not going to use 1, 4, and 9 on this problem. What do I have to do to 1, 4, 9? Oh, no. We got to multiply it by what? 1/2. Whatever A is, whatever number is out there. So I times this by 1/2, and I times this by 1/2. I don't care about this, because I'm going to get 5 points. I'm going to get 4 here, and I have 1 there. So I get 1/2, and I get 2. So from my vertex, I go 1 to the right, 1 to the left, and I go up 1/2. And I put those 2 points down. And then from my vertex again, I go 2 to the right, and 2 to the left, and I go up 2. Solid or dashed? Dashed. So again, these dots really should be open circles, so you could make them open circles. However, I won't care too much, but so it's dashed. If you have a pencil that actually has an eraser, I would just do this. Draw that, and then come back and, oops, not that. Cut through, and then you're done. I think that looks nicer, but you can do the dashes if you want. Done? All right, Eli, what's the question?
How do you graph the 1/2 and 2?
Okay, so I use both of these things. So the one is going left and right from my vertex. So this dot, I'm going to clean that picture up a little bit. So from my vertex, I go 1 to the right. That's this number. And then it's telling me to go up 1/2. So I went over 1, and then I go up 1/2. Dot. And that goes left and right. Okay, so that's where both of these came from. Now the next one is telling me to go from my vertex, I go 2 to the right, 2 to the left. So I came to here, and then it's telling me to go up a height of 2. So from there, then I go up to 2, and that's where that dot came from. All right, we're done? Good? Move on to the next? No. Why not? We got a shade. So, we got a shade. What's our test point? No, we're not doing 0, 0 this time. Because I don't want you to think you have to do 0, 0. We're going to do something else. What he said. So, we're going to test that dot right there. 3, 0. Now, 3, 0 is actually a really nice point to check. If you actually go where your vertex is in vertex form and go above or below it, it's nice because look what happens. So I got 3, 0, so I plug it in. I get 0 is less than 1/2 times 3 minus 3 squared minus 1. What happens to this? It cancels out because 3 minus 3 is 0. If I square it, it's still 0. And if I times it by 1/2, it's still 0. So that's the trick you can use. So that's gone. So is 0 less than -1? No. So that's false. So I'm going to shade over here. questions? Cubics. What are the zeros for this cubic? What? There's one more. 0, 0. This one right here. Alright, so I got 3 zeros. Are they bounces or crosses? Crosses. So remember, the bounce comes if this is squared, but none of them are squared. So it's going to be cuts through each time. So I got 3 dots here. Positive or negative cubic? It's negative. And it's negative because of that negative symbol right there. We don't try to trick you up, okay? Your homework or in class, we might do like a little crazy example, but otherwise, it's basically right there. So, positive, negative. Negative, it looks something like this, okay? So I look at my end behavior. That means I start up here, and I go down here. So I'm going to cut through each one. Should it be solid? No, so I'm going to go back and erase parts of it. Okay, so we got that. So I have the correct, I plotted the function, and I have shaded it or dashed it or whatever correct. Or sorry, I did the dash instead of the solid. So I did not shade yet. Can I choose 0, 0? No. So we're going to have to choose something else. Can I choose that point right there? No. Because I drew my graph like this. But Peyton drew his like this. Who's right? They're both fine. So this doesn't give me any information of actually am I above or below. So when you have a cubic, when you have a quartic, you have to choose basically on the x-axis. Okay? Because if I choose on the x-axis here, I know that this curve is above. I don't know how far up above it is, but I do know it's above. Because if it was on the x-axis, I would have another x-intercept. I don't have other x-intercepts. And based off this, it cut through. It has to stay up there. I don't know where, don't care. And then it can come down. So I could check that point. I can check this one. I can check this one. I can check this one. I can actually check the ones out here too. However, I don't recommend checking outside of your x-intercepts because then you get numbers that are just bigger. And they are more to calculate and things like that. That's your choice. So what do we want to try? 2. Okay, so we're going to try 2, 0. That's our test point. And this time I'm going to let you calculate it by yourself. Simplify it as you need to. What number do you get in there? 16? Is 0 less than 16? Yeah, that's true. That's good. So then that right there, that point, is a solution. So I'm going to shade here and over here. question. All right, you got the next one. You got this one right here. Ask yourself, is it positive or is it negative? Check it, yes. Yep. What's that? So you do have three x-intercepts. Just flipping signs there. Nothing there, so it's positive, so it's shooting up like this one. There's no bounces or anything, so it goes like that. Checkpoint, what are you using? 0, 0 is fine. And if I check 0, 0, does it work? And I'm going to show you actually something a little different. If I have 0 on this side, I am actually just checking to see do I have a positive or a negative number on the other side. I don't actually have to figure out what that number is. So we could do this problem just by looking at the signs. So this will give me a positive number. This will give me a positive number. That will give me a negative number. Positive times a positive times a negative gives me what kind of number? Negative number. Is 0 greater than or equal to a negative number? Yeah, it has to be. Okay? So that means that this is going to be a solution. Now, if you found the number, great. Okay? I'm just telling you there's other ways to look at things. So we have this. 0, 0, is it also a solution point? Yeah, right? It was a true statement down here, and it worked. Okay? So as long as it's true, your test point is a solution point. We're going to skip over what makes sketching the inequalities hard with the cubics. We talked about that a little bit. Does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, we're going to jump to number 8. I know they're not numbered. So we got these two cortex down here. We're going to skip this one. And we are going to do this one. What 0 do I get from that? Eli gave me a weird look. What 0 do I get from that? Yeah. What solution do I get from that? What point? Talk to someone next to you. Decide. And then I'm going to call on someone else. What is the 0 that you get from that? That is true. I did not say you were wrong. Max, what 0 do I get? 2, 0. So we got negative 2, 0, and we got 2, 0. Lane, what 0 do I get? 0, 0, 0. Jack, what do I get? Julian? 2. Come here. Not sure. That's the best answer I've got so far. Lane? 2, 0, 2, 0. There's no X there. I get nothing. So what do I get? Shrug of the shoulders is actually pretty dang close. It's nothing. Folks, we love doing this. We're like, you know what, Nichols, that last problem you had an X there, you put 0, 0 down. So there's a number there. Boom. 0. No. There's nothing. We don't get anything from this. The only thing that tells us is that that is negative. And it's a quartic, so it's going to be going down like that. Okay? So I look at my next thing, and I actually do get zeros of negative 2, 0 and 2, 0. So we were correct, just not where they were supposed to come from. So this one gives me 2, 0, and this one gives me negative 2, 0. So I plot both of those down. What happens at both of those points? The bounce, yeah. So I said it was negative, so it starts down here, it goes up, bounce, and then it curves and bounces back down. Last little thing, because I want your brain not only checking the math, but I also want you thinking in the back of your mind, like, does this answer make sense? Does it not make sense? Tell me this. So y is less than. Is less than above or below? Below. So I know right here, there's nothing below it. So you know what? If I'm going below, I can say my solution is going to be in here. That's below the function. It's inside. But then I'm still going to check. So I'm still going to choose a point. I'm going to choose 0, 0. Why not? And I'll do the math because I just want you to see that it works. So I get negative 2 times 4 times 4. And so I get 0 is less than or equal to negative 32. Is that true? No. So then that's false. I put an F there. I checked 0, 0. That was right here. So I would jump to the other side and shade. So I want you to be logically thinking about what you're doing as well. There's the math portion to check and like to prove that it works. That's what you're doing. You're proving that it is true or false. But then you also can intuitively think about it and just say, okay, less than, below, it's got to be down, or greater than, it's got to be up, it's going up. So does that check out with what I didn't know? Then maybe I got to check my math. Okay? So that's what we got. Any questions? Your homework today is asking you for solution points. It actually doesn't ask you for a checkpoint. So you can do the checkpoint, and then if it is true, put that as your solution point. If it's false, you got to do a different point for your solution point. Okay? Answer keys posted on the back wall. Please ask if you have any questions.